Hi, Tom here. In this week's Circle Line Art School video, I'll show you one way to draw Inception's folding city using one-point perspective. The first step is to draw a dot as the single vanishing point for one-point perspective. Next, draw a guideline to represent the curved horizon line that we'll need as a guide for the folding city. Next, use the vanishing point, the dot, to draw a series of lines towards the base of your drawing. These guidelines will be useful for the receding parts of the buildings. Now draw some front-facing skyscrapers and use the guidelines to the single vanishing point to draw the depth of the buildings as they recede towards the distance. Each of the skyscrapers is basically a rectangle. In this drawing, it will be useful to have some buildings towards the front and then add some more buildings in between them that are smaller, that recede towards the back, towards the distance. Once you have got some of the basic shapes for your first buildings, you could add some lines to these basic shapes to add details of floors and windows, with smaller windows in the distance for the distant buildings. And then you could draw over these lines with some pens. If you do, try to use a slightly thicker pen for the near buildings and the thinnest pen you have for the more distant buildings. If you're using just a pencil, have darker lines for the near buildings and finer lines for the distant buildings. Once you have completed the first buildings in this drawing, it's time to add some buildings for the city as it folds over, based on the famous scene from the wonderful film Inception. To do this, draw a series of rectangles for the front-facing parts of the skyscrapers and buildings in your drawing. In the city, using the original curve of the horizon, the first line that we drew in this image, as a guide for the angle of the rectangles as they fold around the curve. Once you have the basic shapes of the fronts of the buildings and the skyscrapers in your city, it would be useful to draw some soft guidelines from the receding edges of all of your buildings towards your single vanishing point, the first dot that we drew for this drawing. Then you can use these guidelines to draw the depth for each of your buildings. To make your drawing look more dramatic and chaotic, you could draw some buildings at odd angles that don't follow one-point perspective exactly, but they still have a rectangle as the front-facing part, and the receding lines recede away into the distance. Then you might like to add some details to your drawing and some shading. This drawing should take a long time, as it needs lots of details for each of the buildings that you draw. The more details you draw, the better the drawing. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Circle Line Art School, so that you can stay up to date with all the content that I make. I post a new video each week. Thank you for your support. I hope you like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to learn more about drawing, please visit my website, circlelineartschool.com, to find out more information on my drawing courses for beginners. For this drawing, I use a pencil and some black pens.